I welcome our panelist, esteemed panelist, Mr. Rungta, Mr. Behuria, Mr. Chitranjan Dar, and of course, the past president of the chamber, Alok Shriram. And I would, on behalf of the chamber and on behalf of my company, Syenergy Environics, thank you taking out time from your busy schedule and to share your professional journeys, insights on wellness, and recommendations on the way forward for corporates and the community. I would have gone anywhere to listen to such a panel, anywhere in India. And I think we would all consider ourselves lucky that without shaking a leg, without burning any gasoline, and without wasting time, we are sitting at home and we are able to listen to them. So this is a great opportunity, and the testimony, the proof of the pudding is the fact that we have 315 participants in this webinar, which perhaps, if I'm not wrong, would be the highest which the chamber may have recorded so far. So this is, of course, the star power of all the panelists, which has got people. Now, to set the context of the discussion, 5 years back, we would not have had a panel of 4 CEOs in the morning discussing wellness. You would have had chief medical officers, you would have had middle-level executives of CSR, HR, or sustainability discussing this subject, and not many people attending. In fact, the president has given examples of the returns on wellness, and I would just like to allude to a study of Harvard. That they did a study on 600 corporates, and they found that $1 spent on wellness results in increase in the profitability by $3.23. So this is, earlier we would know that, why has wellness become so important now? Why has it become more important? We've been talking about it in corporate governance, in a lot of things. But we know that with COVID, if 2 people in our organization or even our neighbor's organization fall ill, our organization can get closed down. So there is obviously a direct now between economic well-being and personal well-being. Mr. President has talked about absenteeism and larger attrition, and there are many figures on this. So I will now take the liberty of addressing the panelists by their first name, and I hope that the participants will also not take umbrage at this. His perception skills, his common sense, no nonsense approach, and his business acumen. So I've seen people come out of his office smiling after being scolded. So Sushilji, I would like to know from you, what are those personal attributes and qualities which have held you in good stead in the years? What have been your learnings over the years? And whatever would you like to share your insights and personal journey with the panelists, other panelists and the audience? Over to you.
Ajay, talking about my journey in sale and more so at the top, I can say that my approach was basically people-centric. And I had always believed that company like SAIL had tremendous potential both in terms of man and machines. Now, my job was only to create a conducive atmosphere where they could realize this potential. My job was to convince them and motivate them to realize this potential. And for that, we took people-related initiatives like putting right people in right job. It was extremely essential. We had a situation where a lot of people were sitting in one place right from they joined the company, and they would retire from that place. Even they wouldn't see the other plants, how things are going on. Then another very important aspect was result-orientedness in our working. In public sector, adherence to systems and procedures take precedence over the results, and I try to change that with the help of people through communication and also bringing about a situation where people are convinced that if they deliver, then their personal growth and aspirations are linked to the company's strategy as well as company's vision. So this was I can say that my job was a catalyst job, and rest of the job was performed by Sale Collective, and that's how we could bring about those tremendous results. And it was very important that we brought the entire collective on board, including all the major trade unions. Their presidents and general secretaries were part of the steel negotiation group, and they were on board for all the initiatives which we took. And that's how it was employee-driven turnaround what SAIL achieved. And I suppose that must be applicable to most of the other organizations. I feel that most of our people have tremendous energy, and everybody wants to be recognized through their own hard work, through their own accomplishments. They are only looking for platform and encouragement. And as a leader, if we are able to provide that, we can get amazing results. We can get tremendous results if we don't care as to who gets the credit. And we can get tremendous results if we bring in professionalism in judging them. I think after SAIL, of course, for 5 years, I was with the private sector. They already have result-oriented approach with them. But certainly I found that, public sector had tremendous talent, which is not yet matched by the private sector. But still, I think I took up the very important issues without ego. If you don't have ego, if you don't have positional ego, then again, you can achieve tremendous results. So I think that's the basic philosophy behind my working. You are on mute.
Thank you very much. It was really insightful and I think very useful for all of us. So I will now go to Sarthak ji, Mr. Sarthak Behuria. I have known him since the late 90s and I've witnessed his quick progression from ED to Director Marketing and then to Chairman of Bharat Petroleum, then Chairman of IOC and then CEO of the KK Modi Group, and then advisor to Adani Group, and now chairman of Reliance British Petroleum JV. I think he has earned the right to be mentioned in the Guinness Book of World Records. He is the only person who's going to be a CEO of 3 major oil companies. You are he's one of the rare CEOs where, he's a national bridge champion. He's a keen golfer. He delegates a lot. That's what I've seen in his management style. And he's the first non-IOC person to become chairman of IOC. And I remember that when he was going to become chairman, a lot of resentment in IOC. And within 6 months, it had all completely changed. They were saying that he's probably the best chairman that we've had. So how to convert this distrust into absolute trust? We would like to know how you managed people and situations and what were the highlights in your professional journey and how did you manage, again, conflicts in a family-run business like the KK Modi Group or the Adani, and now, of course, into a foreign multinational. So we'd love to, over to you, Sarthak ji.
Thank you, Ajay, and thank you for the kind words. Let me first of all thank the entire management of PSG Chamber for inviting us to this webinar. Normally, with an audience of 300 people on a subject like wellness would have made me very nervous if we were to have a face-to-face kind of a seminar. But I think here I am cozily sitting at home and discussing subjects which I can even take notes and look at some of the points that I've noted without really any of you disturbing.
Can't really imagine many things to make you nervous, sir. So we are just saying out of modesty.
So that's why I think I'm very happy and thank Ajay for all the interest he has taken. Like Ajay said, I have known him for a long time. I mean, we are family friends. We are also lucky to be together in the same building. You will be surprised that both Mr. Rungta and Ajay and I live in the same complex. As Mr. Rungta said, my style resembles a lot, very similar to Mr. Rungta's. I am also known to be a people's man, and I have been the journey from Bharat Petroleum to Indian Oil to again Modi Group and Adani and now Reliance BP joint venture. I would only say that success begets success. If you're positioned somewhere well, and this happens to everybody in any industry. If you are a good lawyer, everybody chases you. If you are a good doctor, everybody wants you. If you are a good film star, everybody wants to cast you. So once you build that reputation of being a successful leader, I think people want you, and that is what happened in my case. Because when I left IOC, Mr. KK Modi was looking to professionalize his company, and he had interviewed a lot of people. And probably he felt I had no knowledge of FMCG nor chemical industry. I was a pure oil man. But I think from the way he spoke to me and the kind of personality that he saw in me, he thought I would be able to suitably handle the job. And I am very proud to have been associated. And of course, one of the finest persons that I have met as a human being, Mr. KK Modi, and a legend of his times. And so in terms of leadership style, I can only say that I believed in trust. I believed a lot on empathy and decision making. I felt that, I used to always put myself in the shoe of the other person who used to come to me or I would be interacting. And I would always feel that if somebody came to me for something, there's some reason why he came to me. And therefore, if to the extent I can, I should be able to help him. And one of the things I think, as Ajay said, one of the biggest challenges that I joined Burma Shell, I grew up in the company. I was one of the first mover advantage I had. I was young. The company grew fast, and I was at the right place at the right time without being modest. And I moved where I did. But IOC was a bigger challenge because, as Ajay said, it was a different company. It was a much bigger company, and they had not seen an outsider to take over as chairman. But I think one of the things that worked in my favor was, of course, I worked with a lot of trust and delegation. And I think what they lacked in was, as a PSU, a decision maker. In a PSU system, as Mr. Rungta said, the processes, the kind of, the issues about vigilance, CBI, and all that, audit scares a lot of people. And when I joined, also a lot of cases were there on dealer selection, on some CBI issues. So the decision-making ability, they want somebody, they will look up to the chairman or the bosses to decide. And very few people would decide. And that is where I think I scored compared to many others in terms of decision-making ability. Follow the process, but you must decide. And we were very lucky to have many projects, many decisions, many hard decisions, despite. And I can also say that ministry has been very cooperative. It's not that, there always been a stumbling block, but they have exercised all their powers, mainly through the board, where they're very well represented. And I think we've had some very, very great persons like Mr. Murli Devra, Mr. Ram Naik, who've been absolute, mentors, and particularly to me, with a lot of love and affection. So it was a combination of, I think, a lot of support from the ministers, the bureaucrats, and a lot of, I think, also cooperation from my colleagues and working together as a team. So that is where I succeeded. And as I said, by moving from IOC to KK Modi to Adani, and now I've joined Reliance to head the new JV with BP, which is the retail venture which you're going to brand as a Reliance JV, BP, GeoBP retail network. So that's where I am, and I certainly look forward to. I've been also associated with the Syenergy Environics.
I move on to Chittu. Thank you, Sarthak ji, for a very insightful sharing. So we were of course, in IIT together. He's always been warm, affable, jovial, and very unassuming. And nobody has noticed how he has quietly moved from to the highest echelons of ITC. He will also go in the Guinness Book of if not world records, at least ITC records, as a group head of 4 divisions. So it's unlike the chief ministers who keep a lot of portfolios with themselves. There are other people who have reposed trust in him, his senior leadership, and giving him 4 of the most important portfolios. And I think he enjoys absolute trust of his colleagues and juniors. So Chitu, why don't you share with us your journey and your insights?
Thank you, Ajay, and good morning to all the participants and all the panel members. I'm delighted to be here. Certainly, I can't claim the kind of successes of Mr. Root or Mr. Bihuria. They have led BMOTs and with tremendous amount of success. So far from being a panelist, I would love to be just listening to them because of what they've said. In my limited career and what I've done through this company, I also believe that people are the most important assets. In that sense, I've always practiced a very open door kind of policy. So anybody who wants to meet me can actually walk through my door and come in anytime and discuss with me any problem that he may have. A lot of people want to share a lot of problems, but there are also times you must know how many problems you want to take yourselves and how many you have to push back. Not all the monkeys can be on your back. And so that's a fine balance which one has to strike. And I think sometimes I've been successful in doing that and sometimes not so, but that's a life's learning. Secondly, I think that people want to be part of a successful team. So one of the important thing is that, we nurture, we create teams which generate success and with blueprint success, and also generate with themselves a lot of knowledge how to be successful. So I love to practice strategy in business wherever I can. And one of the first questions I ask people normally when they are suggesting a solution is that, how is this going to be unique, or how is it different from what our competitors are doing, or what is already there in the market, or what's already happening there. So it makes people think at times, and they enjoy that. Point number 2, I don't think, a lot of people think, in business that they come with the perception that you can be successful with one silver bullet. I've never found that silver bullet in my life. And I've always believed that for a business to be successful, 100 wheels have to work well and in a coordinated manner. So therefore, there are 100 things which have to work well. There will be bite-sized targets. If all of us start achieving, the whole team, then the whole organization or the whole business can move much, much faster. This is something I've tried to practice and inculcate with my teams. And I've found that doing this, when you become successful, then people can partake the fruits of the success and also feel nice about working in an environment of success. So I personally feel, therefore, overall, my role has been being open and candid, talking to people about their problems without necessarily taking all of them on my back. Point number 3 is being about how to break up a big problem into bite-sized issues and then get on with the job of sorting bite-sized issues. And I think point number 4 is that enjoying the fruits of success with the whole team. And that really creates everybody into a winner. So I think I'd like to start with that. Thank you, Ajay.
Thank you. That was very methodical. Thank you very much. So now, of course, finally move to Alok.
Thank you, Ajay. I'd like to start by thanking President Agarwal, the Senior VP, SG, the honored panelists, Dr. R.K. Somani, and all the participants in this audience for being here today. And I will try and justify your participation to the best that I can. Before I start my opening remarks, I'd just like to congratulate the PhD Chamber for the swift response they've had to COVID in terms of the programs and seminars. I think the shift to the e-seminars has been absolutely fantastic. And kudos to them for doing it so well and adapting so fast. And I've seen seminars by other chambers, and I can say that PhD is possibly the best. So congratulations and a great job. There were two questions which came on here. One was asking, in your experience, how did you take care of employees' wellness? And the second is, please focus on COVID spread in this wellness webinar. So I'm going to just try and answer these. I think a lot of the suggestions Ajay made will actually come out here. First is, how did we take care? Well, DCM as a group has had a very rich legacy and a history of wellness, sports, and welfare for all its employees. As you know, we've been in business for over 125 years. And by whatever records I have been able to see, we create colonies and sports stadia and all facilities before we actually create a factory. Because most of our factories were put up in places which had no facilities at all. For example, in Kota or Dorala Sugar Works near Meerut or Mavana or other places. So first we actually created all the facilities, and wellness and employee happiness always took a very, very important role. I think as a group, we always believe that our job is to lift up the standard of living of employees and not only worry about the profits. And a lot of this wellness of employees and health comes out of that. By whatever I could see, originally we used to promote primarily old world sports, things like kabaddi, kushti, and old track and field events, because these were all factories in rural areas. And these were what was promoted. And then in the 70s and 80s, we started promoting mass sports. We never went for elitist sports. We stuck with basically what were called the Olympic sports and mass sports like hockey and football. I'm sure a lot of you would remember that we used to have the DCM football tournament in Delhi. And we used to have a national level hockey tournament in Kota. And these were very prestigious tournaments which brought in the best teams. You know, all the Calcutta teams used to come for our football tournaments and things. Apart from this, we used to also have within our factories what we called an inter-mill tournament, which was an annual event where we had almost 2,000 sports and sports persons and people doing fine arts and things. And we used to have this every year. It was like a mini Olympics. And the result of that was that each of our factories used to support one or two sports, whether it was yoga or basketball or track and field, all sorts of things. And I think it gave a very good feeling to the employees. We used to have some of the best kabaddi players. We used to have some of the best kushti people. But I think the pride of place obviously went to one of our factories, which at one point used to have 8 Arjuna awardees in volleyball at the same time living in our colony. So not only did they work, but they also participated and trained the youth locally, etc. And we had a very outstanding sports person called Khushiram, who was, I think, the best player we ever produced. And in the Japan Asian Games, he was recognized as the best, I think, basketballer in the whole of the Asian Games. So these were things we did. Apart from this, we used to look at emotional and mental wellness by promoting the fine arts, whether it was arts, whether it was drama, whether it was mushaira, kavitas, writing, yoga, etc. And I had gone to Layalpur to our old factory in Pakistan in 2006. This factory was set up in 1930. And I think the colony and the housing area and the stadia took up more area than the actual factory itself. Apart from that, we used to also look after their medical requirements in those days. And there was actually still a Unani Dabakhana and a Ayurveda center running in the colony, helping all the employees. Apart from this, in all our factories, we look at our employees not only as individuals, but as families, and we try and help the families. So what we have done is we have actually started Mahila Kendras in all our factories. We have Yuva Kendras in all our factories to take care of their requirements. And it allows a community spirit and a lot of interaction between people so that we all treat each other as a family and not just a workplace. Our old HR sections used to actually come across as, if I may call it, psychologists. Their job was not just following the law or things, but they were actually interacting with all our employees at family levels and actually taking care of their problems. And as you know, in any community, lots of problems do come up. And we try to help all our employees emotionally also. And finally, I would say that ultimately we believe that a happy employee is a responsible and productive employee. So we try and take care of employees as a family and as in a holistic manner, not just giving them a set of skills. That is what we do only in the factory, but outside also. The second question was from Ankit regarding COVID-19. I think there's a lot being done by the government and they must be congratulated from all they've done. And as far as we are concerned, spreading COVID is something we can do a lot for as individuals. Let us not only wait for the government to do something. The first thing I would say is that we should understand that if for any unfortunate reason we are infected with COVID, let us not go out and be heroes and say, well, we can get over it. Yes, you can get over it. But the fact is you are likely to spread it to 10 other people. And that is what we have to avoid. So self-isolating yourself is not to be the same as falling ill or being, treated that you're in hospital or something. You're actually fine. It's like a common cold or a bad cold. And staying at home for 10 days or 14 days will just prevent you spreading it around, which is what we have to do. And the other thing are the 4 golden rules which the government has been promoting. The first is social distancing. The second is washing hands. The third is wearing a face mask. And the fourth is cough etiquette. I mean, it can't be simpler than that for an individual to do. Just follow these 4 rules and I think you will have really helped the government and the country in a very big way to prevent the spread. So with these short remarks, I'm going to close now. I have another thing, but I will discuss that if there's time later. Another aspect of wellness and health. Thank you, Ajay.
Thank you. So that was quite a good journey into what your group did. Put the context that when we talked 10 years back about wellness, we would say that, if the unions are demanding it, of course, the oil companies, the Steel Authority of India, because they were located in remote areas, they created very good facilities. And people would work all their lifetime there because they would get so much facility which they would not get in a city and so much bonding. But the wellness has changed now because now we realize that the concept of wellness itself, earlier it used to be first aid, medical aid. Maybe you are going to you go to give some people some grants or the unions demand it. So I would like to ask very briefly, I think we are overshooting the time a little bit. So very briefly, we'd like to ask, what is it that you do? So I would like to start with Chittu now and ask him, what did you do? What is ITC? We know much before many other organizations have done a lot for customer wellness. So briefly, if you can highlight what your organization done in 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, thank you. We're talking about employee wellness. Well, some 10 years back, as you rightly said, there used to be more conventional programs, which was about medical checkup and, people getting to then play games, so having some sports facilities, both at the workplace or involving people with some sports facilities outside. One second. Yeah. Or involving people with becoming member of sports clubs, etc. So those things ran for a while and they still do run and they're very effective. But overall, the concept of wellness has changed over the years. So for instance, we have worked with your organization also. when we realized that everybody was using more and more electronics, and there was issue of harmful effect of electromagnetic radiation, which was getting talked about. So we did use your company and with all the chips to inspect and put in the chips across our, first of all, our bill stores, bills offices, showroom offices, and then we even took it to our head office in Calcutta. We've taken it to our luxury hotels, and we've taken it to our factory. In fact, I have a factory in Calcutta. So when I was asking my colleagues, where should we test this out in a factory? He always said that, Calcutta, if it succeeds in Calcutta, it can succeed anywhere in the world. And so we put that into impact in Calcutta and gave us good results. So this is one of the examples which I wanted to show, that beyond the normal health and wellness which we are all used to, whether it's in terms of gaining more agility, gaining more physical fitness, having regular medical checkups which are mandated, as to what we do about health and wellness. Over and above, just to conclude in a minute or two, we also, I think a lot of health and wellness has to do with the mental makeup of people and the stress and how do they cope with it. We have realized this over COVID, that this is also a large issue, especially when you're working in isolated and closed spaces. And we'll come to it later if we have time. But even otherwise, I think ITC, we encourage people to, and we put in counselors and coaches, and we encourage people to talk to them about the problems they have with a degree of anonymity and a degree of confidentiality. And we have found that itself goes a long way in de-stressing people and getting a sounding board which otherwise they feel they may not have. So I've just highlighted some of the ways, and since, as you're pointing out, we've run out of time, so running out of time, I would also like to hear others speak about this.
So, Sarthak ji, would you like to share what are your views on wellness and what you think should be done by the community, by the corporates going forward, and some of the things that you did? I will, of course, specifically come to the electronic, which Situ has talked about, which he has implemented in his organization separately. But quickly on wellness, would you like to share what you've been doing and what you'd like to do? You are on mute.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You can hear.
As I said, traditionally, we've been talking about health in terms of curative, but then over the years, things have changed to preventive. And now we've taken a step further. I'm basically a very conservative family, and I believe a lot on traditions. And in Indian Oil or in Bharat Petroleum, we had 300-400 establishments, and then some of them wouldn't do well for various reasons, and people would say, "Iska vibration theek nahi hai." The person who would go there would fall sick, or for some reason things wouldn't do well, or the relationship wouldn't be as good. Or when we put a new plant, it does. I mean, everything is in order, technology-wise, the process-wise, project-wise, great success, but operationally things go wrong. That is where I think we started looking at. I mean, traditional. Some people would say, "Puja kara dijiye, Satyanarayan puja." That still goes on, but I think now we've got more scientific ways of doing it. So one of the things that we did, let's say in Panipat, when we spent almost 5,000 crores on our paraxylene plant, there were a lot of disruptions in the beginning. And then we had a big, I would say, a meeting in terms of brainstorming as to what we should do. And then we thought, let us try and work on some scientific ways and bring in technology. And that's when I approached Ajay. And through this Syenergy Environics, we did this radiation thing. And since then, of course, we've done many of our refineries. So that is only one part of the, I would say, the wellness. But I think companies are now looking. I've joined Reliance Group recently, but I think I'm amazed at the amount of work they are doing. It's not just their hospitals or they're putting up PP, but they are, I think, doing a lot more proactive work in trying to see that people's attitude, their level of energy is maintained, and it's not just and going much beyond and sending circulars, messages, do's and don'ts, separate I would say communication for Reliance employees, their families. For instance, we have a health tracker for all employees every day. We have to report now in terms of how we are feeling, about 10 questions, and that is over, and we are 150,000 people, and then there's a full team who analyzes and calls back within 24 hours, even if you're not feeling well, if you fever or if you have anything. So these are some of the things that we've progressed, and I think one of the only thing I've said, I want to only say is that while everybody is very happy about this working from home concept, it's not that, I mean, face-to-face has some benefits. I think we have to draw a balance. My heart does go out to all the people who will be unemployed, whether it's drivers, the taxi walas, the office staff, the office space. So that's where I think we need as responsible people as to see how we can draw a balance. We are all saying we are very happy and we would probably like to do it. But what is the fallout of all this? And how do we draw a balance between maintaining the kind of work from home which for COVID is necessary, and some of it we may want to retain, but how do we see that the economic aspect of doing this doesn't go much beyond what it's supposed to. So I think that with these words, thank you, Ajay, for giving me an opportunity.
I think you had to leave a little early, isn't it?
No, I think I've changed that bit.
Okay, that's good. Okay, I'm happy about that. So thank you. So I'd like to move to Runtaji and ask him about his views on how to enhance wellness for ourselves and for the community, and what are the highlights of the things which he's about.
As you had mentioned, with regard to the wellness in the corporates, or for example in SAIL, we had the best-in-class medical facilities with 1,000-bedded hospitals in many of our steel plants, huge facilities, take care of occupational health issues. Steel is a hazardous industry, so there were a lot of occupational health issues like hearing loss or heat stress or bronchial asthma, etc. Those were taken care of through hospital facilities. But I think more importantly, which I mentioned to the President also and other speakers, that it is important that we take care of the emotional and psychological health of our employees. And here it is most important to give a message that care for them and for their families. So like in SAIL plant, there were very good infrastructure created for education facilities or wards of our employees. You will be very happy to learn that 90% of the wards of our workers, on the shop floor, they got into the higher education like engineering, medical, or MBAs. And in fact, Bhilai and Bokaro were two centers from where maximum people used to qualify for IITs. So that, there is no parallel to what, a person can feel good if, is taken care of. And I personally practice that. There were a lot of employees who get innovation award. We didn't give any physical or monetary award to them for the innovative work. Whenever I would visit the steel plant sites, I would invite them for a cup of tea along with their family members. And that used to be a good morale booster, as well as they used to feel very good about it, that yes, the company cares. So, because it is very important to send a message that senior people care. In the present context, I can say that we are holding a lot of strategy sessions, webinars with our senior management team. But once in a while, if our senior management team can also connect through this VCs with junior most employees, some of our shop people, either on VCs or even on con call, and assure them that the corporate or the company is with them, and inquire about their well-being, about their family's well-being and be a great morale booster, and certainly they will feel pretty good about it, much more attached to the companies. So these are the issues which I feel we must take care, emotional well-being of their employees. And in this context, as Mr. Dhar has said and Mr. Bauria has said, that we also had engaged your company to do some radiation correction, and we got very good results in terms of the lesser breakdowns, as well as the pulse rate of the employees which were covered in that correction program improved quite a bit. So it was a good intervention which appreciated by our employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushilji. Alok, would you like to add anything about the wellness other than what you have already spoken?
Yes, I would certainly like to add a little bit. We all know that crop burning, etc., brings in smog. And the country is all very charged about this every year in the winters and wants to improve and bring down the fire burning in the crop burning, etc. There is another type of fog or smog which is actually taking over, and that is electronic smog. You all realize that when you use your phones or electronic instruments, they heat up. So obviously there is energy changing its situation or position or place. And this is all in the air. Unfortunately, it's invisible. So we tend not to think about it. It is also a fact of life that electronic items are now an extension of our hand. I don't think anyone in the audience or in the panel or in the house can think of not having a. And this is giving rise to another set of problems which are now getting documented, which is medical problems because of this electronic smog, if I may call it that. And I am a director on Syenergy Environics, which has actually started doing some work on this. There are two issues that they essentially take up. One is geopathic stresses, which is the geopathic magnetic lines of the earth. And depending upon your placements, they can help you or harm you. And the second is electronic chips, which do not stop the transmission of electronic waves, but tries to correct them to be much less harmful than they are. You must also realize that these are now being used, especially the electronic things are being used by babies. It's not something that you became mature and took up a bad habit. But in a sense, this bad habit starts when you're 1 year old. So you are much more susceptible to the problems. We in our company utilized the services of this Environics, and we did some issues on geopathic stresses. We actually had some boilers which were misbehaving, and these are fairly large. These are about 40-ton boilers and high pressure boilers. So there we actually brought down our breakdown rate from about 15 a month to almost 2 a month. So we assumed that it was helped in a large way by the corrections that we did. And in our offices in Delhi, we measured the pulse rate of our employees. And this is over a few months. And over time, they actually came down by about 3%, which in medical terms is quite a good achievement. So I'm happy we were able to use these things and work on electronic smog. And I would urge all of you in the audience to work on electronic smog and how to improve your living in this condition. Because this is something which is actually going to come back in a few years and hit us all very hard. So this is what I wanted to say about wellness.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I remember that your offices, the old office and the new office you're moving to, they had a lot of high tension line and mobile towers nearby, and the corrections also take care of the effect of some of these outside things. So I would like to put another poll question of how much time do you use for mobile phones in a day, which none of you all or very few of the world would have read. And I'd like to read it out to people. So first is text more than you talk. Second is always use hands-free, which means either speakerphone or a earphone, not a Bluetooth. The third is keep the device 5 to 15 millimeters from your body at any given time. So body is also hand, body is also pockets. And the fourth one is the killer. That says recommended talk time per minute, so per hour, 6 minutes. So we have to see whether we are where we are as far as that is concerned. So here in the poll, we have that 81% people use mobile phone for more than 3 hours a day. So considering that you are waking up for 14, 15 or 16 hours, 3 hours a day with me, and then of course, if you include laptops and things like that, then the results can be quite significant. So with that, I'd just like to move to would Sarthak ji or Roonghta ji or Sushil ji, would you like to say anything? You have implemented Environics, all of you have been its users. Would you like to share anything about its benefits, or shall we move on?
No, as I had mentioned that we had got it done, this radiation correction in some of our plants in between 2006 and 8. We had good results in terms of pulse rate improvement, interpersonal relationship among the employees which were covered by that correction, as well as breakdowns in the plants were less. I later on got it done in some of the plants of Vedanta Group also, and we got the similar results. So our experience was a happy one with regard to those interventions.
My comment, Ajay, is that awareness. How do we? I mean, one is to build an awareness, and secondly, build usage, whether it's at the retail, individual level, organization level, institution level. I think that is the real effort, and that I think you personally, the country needs many more people and many more organizations to do this. I think it's a very important aspect, and as Alokji also mentioned now, in terms of the electronics, the mobile, all these things, people are just not aware of the dangers, the geopathic stress that we are having. So these are some of the things. I mean, we have been able to do something in a limited way to the institutions and organizations. But I think people-related opportunities, I think, is something that will take time, but we should all be working towards.
Thank you. So I'd just like to, for the benefit of the participants, we try to run a small film on the phenomena. What is the thing and some of the work that we are doing. So we take about 4 or 5 minutes to run this, so that you have a better understanding of what is the phenomena and what can be done. So I'd like the film to be put on, please. So these are the number of projects and the countries, and we've covered all the sectors from airports, real estate, hospitals, the plants, refineries. Next. Our mission is, in our balance sheet, we don't publish what the first line is, not the profits that we have made, but how many lives we have touched. So we have touched about 50 lakh lives already. But our target is to get to 10 crores, and we need each one of you as our brand ambassadors to spread the message and to see that we can make a difference in the lives of people. The products and the services have been extensively tested. We have not looked at ourselves only as a national company, but we have subjected ourselves to the best institutions in the world like MIT. We've got published, the Indian Green Building Council, where I'm also a founder member. So you get now more points when you do this electronic correction and the geopathic correction, if you are making a green building. Of course, the latest is that AIMS has found that the EEGs, when you take an EEG in the normal way, when you take it after use of 5 minutes of the mobile phone, the EEG goes pretty haywire. And then with the use of the chip, again by talking in 5 minutes, the alpha and the theta waves improve, which is the ways for relaxation. So many things like that. Yeah. Some of our clients. Next. This is a wellness program which we do. It's a personal wellness program. In about 5 minutes, you get 71 parameters of the body. Agarwal has used this, and many of the other people have used it, and it's very non-invasive. You don't take any blood, you don't take any X-ray, and you have non-invasive ways of correcting this, non-medicinal. This is just a diagram to show you what your office looks like.
We've had a lot of queries, the chat as well as the Q&A section. I would just like to start off by asking the first question, which is, a lot of people have not identified which panelist would they like to actually ask this question. So somebody also suggested that we could use Hindi also as a medium. Okay, so thank you for that suggestion, and we'll try and use a mix of the languages. So
we have some overseas participants also. So I think for the purpose of their understanding, we can use something in between. But, yeah.
Yes. So there is a question from Alicia Vijoy, and she says that offices must include certain amount in the CTC for wellness program. I think that this will compel both the employee and the employer to be more responsible, and no one will be skipping this important activity. Advice. So, can I request Mr. Alok Shriramji to answer this query, please?
Okay, I think, as my earlier panelists had said, till now it's always been towards treatments. Everyone has a medical allowance or a medical subsidy or something. And these are all looking at how to treat a patient. Now we have to move towards preventive, and I hope industries and companies will start doing that. But to have any specific program in a CTC of an individual is very difficult because of pure location. Someone in Delhi may be living in Noida, someone may be living in Gurgaon. So you can't have one program in, let's say, in Pritampura and say that you have to go there. So each individual will have to find out what works for him, what kind of program works for him, and I hope companies will allow the charging of such programs off against medical allowance should work.
No, I want to give an example. I remember when we built the Indian Oil chairman's office in 2004, we built a lovely gym. And when I joined as chairman, they took me all the gadgets, all the equipments. But over the years, we don't find anybody using it because everybody is in a rush to reach home. Everybody is in a rush to go reach on time. So there has to be some things which are social also in the country to be able to see what we can do, what we cannot do. And I think small things can be initiative, but then now we can do a little better because there would be a work-life balance if companies start also adhering to working from home, which has now been proved very successful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There's a question from Basant Joshi that he'd like to hear more as to how it is possible to increase immunity among the employees in the workplace. Is there anything on food which you may want to highlight? I'd like to request Mr. Poddar to answer that.
So you can take the thing on food if you like to suggest something, because ITC is doing a lot on food. And then I can add.
Well, there is a lot of work being done on immunity. Quite surprisingly, 3 years back when we did a survey, not 3, maybe more, 4 or 5 years back, and we asked people that what is it from food? And we were talking about packaged foods, and obviously fresh food would also imply. What is it that you want from food in terms of health and nutrition needs? And most of us felt that before we started that it would probably, the answers would lie in food being good for cardiovascular health, or being good for diabetes, or being good for bones, etc., etc. To a great surprise, we found that the number one need from food was immunity, and both for a mother, which was providing immunity to the child and providing immunity to the elderly. And the second thing, which also took us by surprise, was that people wanted food for cognition. Again, cognition for the child, so that the child does well, gets into an IIT. You know how we are all conditioned to it. While this is a health and wellness program, but academics takes the priority in an Indian household, and also cognition for an older person, so that he doesn't forget names, he doesn't forget where he keeps his key, etc., etc. So overall, what we found that there is a lot of immunity and cognition are two large drivers of what people would expect from their foods. The other illnesses, they said, okay, we use our medicines, etc. We are happy with them. But consequently, our company launched a lot of understanding of what we can do in both immunity to begin with, and cognition and other areas of diabetes, what can be constituted as a diabetic-friendly food. And using a lot of Indian natural remedies and through the following of Ayurveda, and then using modern techniques of conducting clinicals to prove the efficacy, we've come up with a series of products, first of which has been launched. But in short, without going into my products and but Indian Ayurveda has a lot of good stuff, and many of us are already on things like Chawanprash and haldi, ginger, consumption of all these. I think what science to me proved was that most of this was what we called Ayurveda is actually really in a very scientific manner also helps. So that's a great heartening thing, that many of the things at home that we use, many of the home remedies, if we use them well, they do provide a lot of, and especially in immunity, there's a great amount of benefit that can be derived.
Okay, I'd just like to add here that we are all electromagnetic beings. Our body is also a vibratory body. And the best way to raise immunity is to raise your vibratory frequency. You raise your vibratory frequency if you are, one is away from electronic gadgets. So you follow the hygiene distance, keep it away from your head when you are sleeping. Don't sleep with the router in your room. So all these things, if you have a mobile tower and you can't do, there are protection devices which are available. But more than that, if you chant, if you meditate, if you chant, that's a great way of increasing your immunity because your vibratory frequency goes up. And other than when we are talking about COVID-19 a lot, then of course, the best way to take care of that is to improve your immunity. And one of 2, 3 things I can share, you can take vitamin C, you can take zinc, you can take iron. These are available in natural forms. If you have these 3 things, your immunity would be great.